Oh,
We're live. All right.
yeah.
Back in action.
Um, I learned a long time ago that in business, it was like, don't stress a negative or don't accentuate a negative. But I definitely want to say how what happened yesterday, I can't not say because I already put it out there, but we did the whole entire podcast and something happened and it didn't save and it went away and it wasn't there. So this is take two.
That's
So
right.
thank you so
Of
much.
course.
I mean,
No
really,
worries.
seriously, that this is a long time, and I really appreciate you coming back. And let's try to just duplicate what we did
Yeah, why
yesterday.
not?
So thank you, Steven, for coming. I
Yeah, round
think
two. Let's do
let's
it.
do it. So what I'm interested in knowing, I think a lot of people are interested in knowing, and I've got some questions that people wanted me to ask. But like, let's start at the origin, the beginning of where you grew up, you know, what you did growing up, whether it was sports or extracurricular stuff. And then where we want to end up is last night you performed at the Ridge and you're a professional musician now and you're trying to make a career of it. You are making a career of it. And then how you got into running in the last 3 years. And so I have some other questions about the running as well. But let's just start at the beginning of
Sure.
where you grew up, what your family was like, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Born and raised in West Monroe, Louisiana. For those of you that have no idea where that's at, if you've ever seen the TV show The Duck Dynasty, that is my claim to fame. That's where I was born and raised. They were local legends. I mean, I grew up duck hunting, so they were local legends way before the TV show came along. But it was cool to see our town be put on the map because of that, and which is a great show. It's a faith-based show, which is cool. So,
Yeah.
yeah, born and raised West Monroe, Louisiana. I did a little bit of everything growing up. Musically, I started on the drums. It's hard for me to remember because I was so young, but I
Hmm.
think I was about 4 years old, and my dad put me on a set of drums. We had a set of drums at my
Was he a
uncle.
drummer?
He does everything, so
Okay.
he plays every instrument pretty well.
Okay.
He would probably tell you he doesn't do anything great musically, but he does everything good. So he can play a little bit of piano, a little bit of drums, sings guitar. He does everything. So that's kind of where I got it. My mom's an amazing singer. She's been
Okay.
singing in church our whole life, and that kind of kick-started my interest in music. But sports was always my main focus. I love playing drums, but it was a hobby for me. I didn't
Hmm.
really pursue it as a career. And so I started playing football and baseball around 5 or 6 years old. We were,
Yeah.
I know it's changed a lot now, but we were doing tackle football in second grade.
Yeah.
And then T-ball starts around 5 years old, kindergarten age roughly. And I did that all the way through high school. I played both baseball and football in high school. Baseball was more of my thing, just my build
Yeah.
naturally. I was good enough to start football. I played cornerback because I was
Okay.
always a fast kid, so I could run with the wide receivers. But yeah, but I love baseball. That was my thing. I made the varsity team as a sophomore in high school, and by the time I was a senior, we were, I think, 4 or 5 nationally ranked, and
Yeah.
I was the only guy who didn't go play D1 baseball because I'd hurt my shoulder, and um, like I'd mentioned yesterday, I was the valedictorian of my high school of
Which
about,
was really
yeah,
cool to find
crazy,
out.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an enigma, I guess. I don't know. I like to do a little of everything, but I was very proud of, you know, being able to get A's, and I worked really hard at it. I was never the most gifted person. I couldn't just show up and make A's on my test, but I always worked really hard at it. And so when I played center field my senior year of high school, and we ended up losing out in the tournament. Unfortunately, that still stinks. I wish we would have got a championship, but that's the way life and sports goes in general. It's just not always the best team wins. But so I hurt my shoulder in high school. I tore my labrum and
Ugh.
had a partial tear. And I don't think it was one of those things from what I can remember that was bad enough that I needed to repair it if I just want to keep living. Like, I
Yeah.
did exercises and did
Rehab.
PT and rehab, and
Yep.
basically everything around it just kind of got stronger, and it really doesn't affect me today. There's certain movements where I'm like, oh yeah, I can feel that. Like if I try to throw a baseball, I'm like,
Oh
oh, I
yeah.
can feel that. But so maybe when I have kids one day, I might have to get it fixed so I can play ball with them. But anyway, so I went to college, and at the time, I started at Louisiana Tech, which is
Hmm.
about a half hour from Monroe, where I grew up. and I wanted to be a doctor. Because when you graduate as a valedictorian, you're just kind of always told you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, just
Expectations.
something,
Yeah.
these high end jobs. And I did biology my freshman year, and I made A's, but I was like, man, this isn't for me.
Mm.
I wasn't passionate about it. I felt like I was just memorizing a book,
Yeah.
and it just didn't do anything for me. So I switched over to electrical engineering, and I did that for about 3.5 years. And I had to transfer. At some point, I was just like, you know what? I don't want to do this either. And
Yeah.
uh, one of the most awkward things I've ever had to do in my entire life was I was transferring back to my hometown college. So Louisiana Tech's in Ruston, Louisiana, and then I was transferring back to my parents' alma mater, ULM. It was NLU when they went to it, but it's UL University of Louisiana Monroe. And Louisiana Tech is on a quarter system.
Oh yeah.
ULM was on a semester system, so I was trying to transfer with the winter quarter and the spring semester, if you can keep up with all this. And essentially, you can't be enrolled in two colleges at once. So I technically had to drop out of Louisiana Tech to enroll in ULM. And that was the most awkward thing ever to do, because in order to drop out of college, you got to get a permission signed by every single one of your professors. You can't just like, I guess you technically can just leave and never come
Yeah.
back, but I obviously wanted to continue my journey at a different college, so I had to go through this process. And I believe at the time I had, if not the highest grade, one of the highest grades in every single one of my classes. I ended up only making five B's throughout my entire college career, and four of them were BS. I'll say that right now. I was very upset at the time. I'm still not over it, apparently. And they were like, Steven, are you okay? Like, is there something going on we should know about? I'm like, no, not really. I just don't want to do it. And essentially, they were like, I'm going to advise against this. You're a great student. I think you can have a great career in engineering, and which I respect them for that. But my heart, I just knew that that's not what I wanted to do, and I
Hmm.
always follow my gut, and good or bad,
Yeah.
I just do it. I believe in something and I go for it. But so I transferred, or attempted to transfer back to my hometown college, and they said, "No, you're too late." I was like, "What do you mean? I'm here. School the semester hasn't started yet, because there's on a semester there's usually what, a month break
Yep.
between it, something like 3 4 weeks." And they weren't gonna let me in. And then I gave them a copy of my transcript. And they're like, you know what? I think we can make room for you here. So I got a little lucky in that aspect. That if you bring A's to the table, then they're gonna let you in, because it
Hmm.
boosts their overall scores. And I'm sure they get things for
Yeah.
if their students perform well, money, all that stuff. But yeah, so I graduated in the spring of 2013. I took a victory lap, an extra year in mathematics. Graduated summa cum laude in mathematics.
Nice.
So yeah, I don't. But that was kind of everything leading up to that, to my music career, and I could just keep going if you want. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll just
absolutely.
kind of tell up to the
Yeah.
point where I got to Nashville. Um, so during the time period where I transferred back to ULM, I was playing in cover bands, and sort of the origin of this whole thing was me and my buddy Caleb Sims were out one night at this place called the Pickle Barrel in Monroe, Louisiana. I'm not even sure if it's a bar anymore. It could be something else. I'm not sure. I haven't been back in years to that location, but we were out one night, and Caleb is a great guitar player, great singer, and we were all hanging out. At that point, I played drums, but I never really picked up guitar. Never
Hmm.
interested me. I didn't really sing aside from sing along to music. I wasn't a passion for me at the time. And there was a guy playing on stage, and he took a break, and he was like, "Hey, Caleb." I guess him and Caleb were buddies, and he's like, "Hey, man, get up, sing a few songs while I take a break." Something of that nature. And Caleb got up, sang a few songs, which led to the bar owner inviting Caleb to come back and play a show. And Caleb's like, yeah. So it was either that night or soon after. Caleb's like, hey, man, you want to play drums in my band? Let's put a band together. And so we did on a
Wow.
whim. Caleb's big brother, Kyle, is an amazing singer, and he played piano. And then Caleb also sang. And then Joe, who has since passed, our buddy, tragically, we lost him in a car accident,
Mm.
but he was our first bass player. And we threw a band together, and that was kind of the beginning of my career as a musician. I clearly remember it because at the time I think I was still in college when we were playing that band. But during that I transitioned to the real world and I was working in insurance. But I remember the first time I stepped on stage behind that drum kit and I was like, yep, this is it. This is what I want to
Wow.
do because I always had this plan of kind of what I wanted in life, go school. When you go to school, it's like, okay, I know what I need to do to make A's, and
Hmm.
then A's lead to scholarships and scholarships to college. And once I get to college, I can go to pre-med. And, I just had all these ideas. And then once that kind of went haywire, and I was just kind of confused in life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really have a plan, I guess. And then when I stepped behind that drum kit, I was like, yeah, this is it. So I played with those guys for about a year, and then we just kind of had a little bit of a falling out. I mean, we're still great buddies now, and it's all water under the bridge now. But I was just very, very passionate about music, and I
Yeah.
wanted it so bad. And for them, it was more of a hobby,
Hmm.
and they were having fun with it, and I was having a blast too. But I'm like, hey guys, we got to do this, and they just didn't want the same things that I
Yeah.
wanted. And that's totally fine. At the time, I was like, why not? Like, come on, like
Yeah.
and I was just very passionate and wanted it. And so end up during that time, I was learning how to sing and play guitar, and I was starting to dabble in songwriting. And I broke off and became the front of my own band. Found guys, and I think Joe, the bass player that was in my original band, became the drummer for my new band. And because in small towns, everyone just kind of plays with each
Yeah.
other. And his brother played bass, and hired some other guys, and a buddy named Daniel played guitar, and Alex. But it was great. Played that about a year, and then during that time, I was getting the itch to move to Nashville. I never had visited, and this was 2014-ish, and I found an apartment online and just picked up and went. And that was kind of the beginning of my journey to music.
Yeah.
That's kind of the origin of it. Love sports, but once I found music and knew that it was going to be a lifestyle for me, and what I want to do forever, then that was it.
So
I
you
made it.
guys, I mean, as a band, you were playing country music, I'm assuming, or
We
just
were doing, we were doing a little bit of
where are you?
everything.
Okay.
It's sort of, I mean, you've seen Broadway style shows.
Yeah.
It's especially my band now. It's primarily country, but we do a
Hmm.
lot of stuff.
Yeah, you
So
do. Yeah.
we were playing some Black Crows. We were doing some mashups. I think our lead singer did like this amazing version of Lady Gaga at the
Okay.
time. I mean, just like crazy stuff, but it
Yeah.
all sounded so good. And I took a lot of what we did, and of course, I started doing more the country stuff that I really like, and the fishing in the darks, and the which we did a lot of that stuff. But I'd have to go back and find a set list, because ultimately it came down to how many songs can I play on guitar because I
Right.
wasn't that good. Um, but yeah, that's sort of how it all started for me. It was just a random night out with my buddy Caleb and a few friends at the Pickle Barrel, and it led to where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So
Move to Nashville. So you get an apartment, you're there, you have to work.
I do, yeah. So luckily I had made a little bit of money working in insurance for a year. Nothing crazy, but enough to where I didn't have to show up day one and find the job. I had a little bit of a cushion.
Hmm.
But during that time when I first moved to Nashville, my dad helped me move up, and the guy that sold us furniture, Billy, he became my friend, one of my best friends for the first couple of years, and really showed me the ropes of Nashville. He wasn't involved in music at all, but he had a lot of friends in the music business
Hmm.
and the downtown scene, and so we hung out a lot. And I worked for him for a bit, doing some Airbnb stuff, and then just maintenance. It's like, hey, this they need more light bulbs or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
They need air filters. So we
yeah.
would go and do that, and we would install furniture and just really whatever. And I drove Lyft and Uber for a while, and then I was just trying to do whatever I could. And I worked as an electrician under an electrician for a year, which was fine. I love that craft. I love learning things like that. And I had a
Hmm.
background in electrical engineering anyway, so it was sort of an easier thing for me to grab hold of. But during that initial period, I was also going to 5 or 6 open mic nights a week.
Yeah.
So if any of you musicians are out there listening, I'm sure it's very similar, but it was probably also a lot different back then because I was mid to 2015,
Yeah.
16, somewhere around there, and obviously social media was still big, but it wasn't quite where it is now. So you just go out and try to meet people, and you didn't necessarily need at the time a viral moment to you know, make your
Get out
career
there, yeah,
right.
be seen.
So you just went out and met friends. So different bars had different open mic nights, and these were unpaid. You usually get one song, and
Wow, really? One
one
song?
song. And it was madness because everyone wanted to play, and there's only so many. You know, they usually have a 3 or 4 hour slot, but you
Hmm.
can have 100 people show up.
Right.
And I remember a lot of those were crazy. The Bluebird at the time, you showed up and you put a number, or you got a random number, something to that extent, and then they drew numbers.
Hmm.
Whichever position you were, that's where you got to go. And the first time I went, I wasn't selected. I was too far down the list, but they automatically gave you a spot the following week if you went back. And I met a good buddy of mine who's still one of my best friends and my main co-writer today, Jarrett Hartness, and uh, we got to play the second time, and so that was cool. But there was ones where you could sign up and get a guaranteed spot, or there was, I know this bar's not even there anymore. I think it was called Jed's Sports Bar. You go and we all wait in a room, and then the sound guy would get there, and you would sprint to the table where he was
What?
at. It was mad. It was like herding cows.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. And you sprint up there, just try to get your name on the list, and it's, looking back, it's hilarious. It's like it's not that big of a deal, but to me at the time it was. It's
Oh
like I
yeah.
have to like prove myself, I have to sing my songs, I have to hope someone likes it and wants to write with me, because at the time you're still, and we can get into co-writing too, but you're trying to build your friendships and build your co-writing circles, and so you're just trying to figure it out the best you can. And I didn't know a soul when I moved to Nashville, so I was just trying to figure
Yeah.
it out. But it was crazy.
So in the open mic thing, um, you know, when you go and like when you go visit Nashville, and we can talk about when we go down there and we see you play and everything. But in that setting, like the Bluebird, for example, you go there with your guitar, or like, and then
Yeah.
and so like there's no changes set though, right? I mean, like you got a drum, a kit that's like there permanently, or like how does
Well,
all that
so
work?
if you, I don't know if you have you ever been to a writers round?
No.
Okay, so a writers round essentially is just writers or artists. It can be either one. Like my buddy Jared, I was just talking about, he's not an artist. He's just a writer. He's a phenomenal writer. He's not, he just loves to write songs. He never has the aspirations to be an artist. But for me, I like to write, and obviously I'm an
Hmm.
artist as well. But writers' rounds is where you go, and it's typically a show where it's 4 or 5 people on stage with acoustic guitars, and they tell stories about the songs they've
Mm.
written. And it's very laid back, and that's what the Bluebird is. It's
Yeah.
just acoustic. There's no bands or
Okay.
anything like that. I think there's only 75 people that can even fit in that room, and it's very intimate. And it's usually a ticketed show, but I think for the open mic nights, they do it maybe one night a week, and there's
Hmm.
a 3 or 4 hour slot. So however many people they can fit in that 3 hour slot, which it could have changed by now. I haven't been there in a while, but yeah. And so you go up, you tell your story, you sing your song, and hopefully that leads to maybe they invite you back, or
Yeah.
maybe you meet a co-writer or
Mm.
another artist that you think's cool that you can hit it off with. So it's all about networking, and trying to do that.
So that reminds me of a question I wanted to ask you yesterday. And so you go and you're doing these open mics. Now, let's just say back up to sports or football. There's scouts that will go and
Yeah.
watch kids play. Is there scouts in Nashville that will go to open mics, or even go to like now down Broadway and be like, never heard of these people, or hey, you should go check them out?
Yes and no. So we definitely live in the internet world where your numbers on the
Oh yeah,
internet
good point.
drive,
Yeah.
so it's not like it really used to be where they would have to go out and discover talent, because talent's on the internet, they can
Hmm.
find them.
Yeah.
But there are certain places like the Listening Room and the Bluebird are usually ticketed shows. And so people will go and listen. Open mic nights, probably not. I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
I wouldn't assume you'd find the executive for Warner or
Yeah.
something there, but you
Yeah.
never know. You always kind of play like someone is listening. Typically, they won't go down to Broadway. It's just too much of a matter. But venues like the Listening Room or the Bluebird were very respected venues in the writing community. They're definitely have a chance.
Yeah. I know now, like last night, people were asking me to ask questions. And so I did ask a couple of questions yesterday about the actual music industry itself and how it works. And can you just kind of maybe talk about what you did yesterday about how, right now you're currently in a circuit, or you
Sure.
explain like just go in the background of that whole how that works, right? Because we've been to
Sure.
Nashville 20 times and we go to basically the same bars, and it seems like it's always the same artist at the same time, that are the
Right.
good ones that are like, have a permanent job, like kind of like you do.
Yeah. So if you've ever been to Nashville, Broadway, Lower Broadway is its own entity. So there's a lot of artists or just singers. You don't even necessarily have to be an artist to put out your music, and musicians that make a great living just playing downtown cover shows. And now you have that side of Nashville, that you also have the music industry side,
Mm-hmm.
which they're almost completely separate.
Mm.
The music side, the industry side doesn't really want to associate itself with Broadway. Not really sure why, but for whatever reason, they've always kind of frowned upon anybody playing down there. But whatever, it is what it is. I love playing downtown, and obviously my ultimate goal is to play music, my own music for a living. But yeah, so there's a bunch of circuits downtown. So the the industry side of things
Mm.
is kind of how you would assume it work. There's big labels and publishing companies, and if one of them sign you, they might help you develop or get you on radio, put you on tours. It's kind of the standard
Mm-hmm.
thing. But on the Broadway side, there's different circuits. So I would say there's at least 4 or 5 different circuits downtown. So bars are all kind of linked by owners.
Yep.
Like the Tootsies and the Kid Rocks and the Honky Tonk Central, that's owned by one group. And then you have another group like the Dirks Bentleys and maybe Valentine. Some of these are run by this other company. And then you have the Morgan Wallens and Aldeans and Luke Bryan's, they're run by a different company.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time, if you see an artist playing, they usually play within that
Within that
circuit. Even
circuit,
though it's
yeah,
different
makes sense.
bars, it's
Yeah.
usually booked by the same
Yep.
company. And that's what I do. My circuit is more of I play at Dirk Bentley's bar, or
Mm-hmm.
I play at Garth Brooks's bar, which there are two different companies that run that. But I've always been fortunate enough to have a bunch of different places to play, but the same guys are technically booking me. Um,
So let me stop you there for a second. So how do you go if you're a young artist now and like you were when you started, how do you go from doing the open mics, which are free and you're trying to get
sure.
noticed, to getting that gig? Like did they
Yeah.
hire you and you're on a
Yeah.
consistent schedule? Like give me some idea of how that
So it all
works.
depends on what you want. I love playing shows, and so doing live performances was always a goal of mine, as well as songwriting. Some people just want to songwrite, so maybe
Yeah.
Broadway's not for them because they're
Mm-hmm.
not into the performance side of things. But for me, my personal journey, as well as I can remember it, I essentially started playing acoustic shows on Second Avenue, which is reopened and
Mm-hmm.
it's great now. I know Luke
Yeah, Luke's place is
Combs,
amazing.
yeah, it's great, but they've really done a great thing since all that chaos went on down there. Um, but I started playing at this place called Cerveza Jack's on Second, and some other little bars, but that was my primary spot. And then I played at the stage on
Mm-hmm.
Broadway. They had an acoustic room, so I was playing a lot of shows and I was building my chops, building my set list. Because when you first start doing that, the way Broadway works is most of these bars or all of these bars give you something just to show up. They give you a base pay, but
Okay.
primarily your money is made through tips.
Tip.
And so if you want to make tips, you have to know a lot of songs because people will tip you, but only if you play their song. Or they tip otherwise, but it's like, here's a $20
Yeah, yeah.
bill. Do you know this
Yeah.
song? And if,
Yeah.
well, I want which is fair.
Yeah.
So I started playing a ton of acoustic shows for years. Probably 2017. That was right when I made that decision that either I continue along the electrician path and work for this guy full time and really maybe even become a partner with him or
Mm.
take over his business. And I was like, nope, I don't want to do that because, I came here to play music. So I think it was just like setting my priorities straight. Like, nope, figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I was doing acoustic shows, and that eventually led to other opportunities at other bars, acoustic shows. I played at Cerveza Jack's for the stage, and they're like, hey man, I've got a shift at Dirks Bentley. I need an acoustic duo partner. You want to jump on with me? Yeah, man, I'd love to. And so you get in front of all these different bars and managers and staff, and they're like, hey man, I like your sound. You're pretty good. You keep the bar engaged. You sell drinks. You
Yeah.
do all these things. you want to come back and maybe play one of your own shows. Yeah. So it's just sort of working your way up over the years. And um, fortunately, I'm at a great spot now. During COVID, I transitioned to full band. I never really wanted to do full band simply because you've seen it. There's just a rotating door of musicians downtown. There's a lot of guys that play with a lot of different artists, and I wanted my own group of guys that we could play together 4 or 5 times a week,
Hmm.
develop our show the way we
Hmm.
wanted to, really put on a show versus just playing cover songs,
Yeah.
which I think is a big difference,
Yeah.
So fortunately, I was able to do that, and I played with one band for a couple of years, and then I've been playing with my most recent band since probably 2023. So, be three
3 years.
years,
Yeah.
yeah, at the end of this year. So it's been great. It was just kind of a working my way up sort of thing. Started out acoustic shows, put on a good show, got in my foot in the door with some other bars, maybe even just playing with somebody else, which led to them inviting me, and then uh, transition to full band, and you put on a good show as a full band, which leads to better shifts. Instead of working the 10 a.m. shift, you're like, hey, you want to come back for the afternoon shift? And you did a great job afternoon shift. Hey, you want to come for a primetime shift at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock? And then you work your way up, and then eventually I get to the point where I basically get to pick and choose as long as it's available, but pick and choose like, hey, I want to work this day. Do y'all have anything that you can work me in? And eventually work your base pay up higher and higher. It's just like any job, really. You put in the work, and hopefully you get rewarded with more money and that sort of thing. But that was sort of my journey. I know it's different for everybody. Some people just jump in full band, they just go. But I really kind of built my chops along the years.
So it's like 7 years of
Yeah,
work to get
7.
to the point where you're
Yeah,
at today. That's incredible.
yeah,
You mentioned it in an all you mentioned the difference between, singing a song for an album or something like that, and then performing.
sure.
And I can tell you that I didn't notice that difference until I started watching live music of bands when I would go to concerts. And we've gone to so many concerts where the music is amazing, but sometimes it's the performance that's incredible. I'll give you two examples. One, which was crazy, but we went to New Kids on the Block.
Okay.
Okay. They did a tour last 2 years ago,
Oh wow.
and it was them, En Vogue, Salt and Pepper, Rick Astley.
Wow.
But here's
It's
the
a
thing.
solid lineup.
I was like, wait a minute. I grew up in Boston, and New Kids on the Block, it was a big deal. I've met Jordan Knight, and we hung out a couple times, but I thought, okay, this is gonna be kind of corny. But I'm telling you right now, the performance they put on, like forget about the cheesiness and the
Right.
dancing and this, and I was like, holy
Well,
crap.
that's what that kind of music is.
Oh
It's
my
more than
God.
just it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. And then most recent experience, I hate to say this and admit it, but like I knew who Kenny Chesney was, and I
Yeah.
knew maybe one or two of his
Puts on
songs.
show, doesn't he?
Holy moly, like we saw him at the Sphere, which is
Oh wow,
an
he went to
experience.
that? Oh
Yeah,
wow, that's
that
cool.
was probably one of the best performances because it had this visual thing going on. He was engaged. It was like it was such a good performance. It wasn't just
He's
him
he's the
singing, you know what
man.
I'm saying? It was like incredible. It was incredible.
I want to say this has been quite a few years ago, but there was a list of the most popular artists and who sells the most, and like it was Taylor Swift and then Kenny Chesney.
Wow.
I mean, he can only play stadiums. He's like Garth. Like you can't like he can't play an arena to 8,000 people. That's not enough seats. Like he has to play to 20, 30, 40, 50 plus.
Yeah.
He's incredibly huge, and his music's great, and he sounds just like
Oh
he
yeah.
does on the record,
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that yesterday too, about how, that's what I'll ask you next is this whole, I heard on a podcast, I think it was with Ernest and it was Theo, and they were asking about writing, which we talked a little bit about, and maybe you can go into more detail on
Sure.
how that works and how writing, published, like all that kind of copyright stuff. Like, I mean, I don't understand how it works. And then how he had mentioned that he has his band when he goes to a stadium and performs. But then when they cut a record, they go into a studio and they have
Right.
professional guitar player, keyboard player, drummer. So talk about those two things there if you can, like
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
writing and how do you get like ownership rights to your song, and then the musicians that play in the studio versus the guy that plays in your
Yeah.
band.
So writing,
Mm.
if you write a song, unless there are ways, I guess you could sell it, but if you write it, you own it forever. That's yours. I mean, that's your art, that's your creation. And the way it works in the country world is usually I'd say 3 to 4 people usually write on every song. That's kind of just the culture of Nashville co-writing, and you just hope that song gets cut by a big artist, unless you record it yourself. But yeah, you write the song, and then it's just split evenly. So 3 people each get a third of it. And then if Blake Shelton, like a couple of my buddies just wrote Blake Shelton's new song Texas.
Yeah.
So I think it just went number 1. So there was four. I think there were 4 of them on that chorus. So they each own a quarter of that song. But then they also have publishing deals, so that
Yeah.
takes money from them. They have other things on top of that, but it's their song, their names. It's never going to be Blake's song. Like he
Yeah.
gets the performance rights, and obviously he's the
The
artist that
things.
does it. But Nashville songwriters are kind of everything. That's the real gem of Nashville's guys that can write songs, and because most artists that become that big, like Blake Shelton, they don't have the time really to write, 200-300 songs a year, so they can get 15 really really good ones, to put on a record. So yeah, when it comes to songwriting, you usually get with a couple of friends, or sometimes it's random people you get set up with, and either come in with a melody or an idea or guitar riff, and you just sit there, and typically within 3 hours you have a finished product, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I've also written songs in 30 minutes, and I've written songs that only have a verse, and I've tried to write it for 3 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's there's no one way to do it. There are guys out there that are very good, and they can usually get a pretty good song within 3 hours if you had a good enough idea. But it's an interesting world. You just never know what song that you write that's gonna work. You'd be like, man, this song's really good, but doesn't fit anybody at the time. I believe "Till You Can't," the Cody Johnson song.
Yeah.
That song's over 10 years old.
Wow.
Sat there for 10 years because it just, for whatever reason, maybe the production of the demo just wasn't right, and so people couldn't hear the way. There's all
Hmm.
kind of things. Maybe it was somebody that was singing on it that
That.
was like they just couldn't hear
Yeah. Yeah.
themselves singing. Whatever the
Yeah.
reason. And Cody came in and had the vision for that song, and it became a massive hit for him.
Yeah.
So you just never really know.
Right. I got a story, and I probably get it wrong, but I remember hearing Chris Stapleton. He got hired to write a song for a show, right? Maybe it was Yellowstone or something like that,
Sure.
but it was like 10 years ago, like you said. And it just sat there, and then he found it again or re-released it, and it became like this number one song for him. And you're like, man. So I think for the like the average everyday person that listens to music, I think I made the assumption that the people singing it wrote everything, like wrote their own music. Like Morgan Wallen. I know, we're
That's
gonna
it.
see him tomorrow night, which is
Oh,
amazing.
that's
But
be fun.
I think one of the songs, I can't remember which one, and Tracy will kill me for not knowing, but Miranda Lambert wrote it for him,
Sure. Yeah.
and I was like, man,
Well, I would say, I mean, he's a great writer. So I would say he writes at least half of his songs, but he's also surrounded by Hardy.
yeah,
Hardy and Ernest are two
yeah,
of his best friends,
yeah,
and they are two of the best songwriters in Nashville.
yeah,
They're great, especially at that style of writing.
yeah,
They're very good at it. So if they have, because at the end of the day, it's always been about the song. And I know as an artist, you really want to write your own songs, but if the song is good enough and it feels like something you want to say, why not record a song that someone else has
yeah. So,
written?
I mean, you're saying write the song and it's yours, but how does that actually physically and mechanically work, right? So write on a piece of paper, whatever it is, type it out.
Sure.
Then how do you get it to become your published song or the rights to it?
Well, I guess technically once you write it, it's yours. I guess as long as you have proof that you wrote it.
Yeah.
But you'll upload it to platforms like BMI,
Okay, that's what I was gonna.
or
Yeah.
ASCAP, and so
Okay.
once it's in there, it's yours. You can copyright it. I don't know exactly how all that works. I don't know if you copyright every single song that you write, but you definitely upload it to BMI or whatever, so you and the songwriters are listed on it, and that way when and if it gets recorded by artists, you'll get royalty checks. If it's played on radio or Spotify or whatever it's at. Um, So yeah, I mean it's essentially yours as soon as you write it.
So using that example, there's like a, let's call it a warehouse of songs out there, still out there. It's in the
Yeah.
wherever, the internet, the universe. And are there people out there that go looking for good lyrics or a song?
Yeah,
And does it
so
come with the music?
yeah, so there's definitely in the publishing world, there's song pluggers and there's people that go out and find songs. And
Yeah,
a lot of times it's if you're publishing, it's like, hey, here's all my writers and here's some songs. So they're out there trying to like pitch their songs
there's
to
okay,
artists.
gotcha. Yep.
And it's all about building relationships. So
Hmm.
like one publishing company may have very close connections with Morgan. So
Yeah,
it's like, hey man, here's a song our guys wrote this week. I think you're really gonna like it. And they can just text it to him or email or whatever.
yeah,
And he's like, yeah, that's a great song. I want to cut it. And that's sort of what I don't know the exact story with Texas, but um, from what they told me was I believe they had a right. The guys that wrote that day had a right canceled on them. Like for some reason, their original right got canceled. So they're like, hey, let's just all get together. Let's write something. Let's just hang out, have fun. And they wrote
that
Texas
song.
that day,
Yeah,
which is crazy. You hear those stories all the time. And I believe either that day or that week, Blake got a hold of it. It was like, I've been looking for something exactly like that. I want it. And within the week or the next couple of weeks, he had already recorded it. Like it
wow,
was that fast.
wow.
Which it doesn't always happen like that, but it's just timing in this business. And they just happened to get a right canceled that day. They all got together, wrote a song they thought was cool. Didn't really probably think much of it because they write tons of songs all the time. Blake Shelton got it that week.
Yeah.
Boom. Or whenever. I know it was a very quick turnaround. But yeah, it happens all the time.
So you mentioned the key word business.
Business.
So when did, I know you're really passionate about your craft and being an artist and writing and playing and performing, but at the end of the day, it is a business,
It
right?
is,
And
yep.
you're in it. So I think a lot of people want to know kind of like the business side of it in terms of, I think we talked a little bit about, you said, you get paid, but how does all that work? Because like I told you, when my first experience going there, we were at Rippy's or something, and the girl that was singing this was back in 2016, walking around with a bucket
Sure.
trying to get tips. And I thought, man, and then I heard someone say something like, they don't get paid, they only get tips.
Right.
That was 9 years ago. So I'm assuming it's a little different now. So if you want to, I think people are interested in knowing how you get paid, and they're interested because, like last night, you have your Venmo up there,
Right.
and people are Venmo requests of songs and stuff like that, and so just maybe tell us how that kind of
Sure.
works.
So every bar downtown pays the band. There's a huge disparity on certain bars. I won't call anybody out. Don't ruffle no feathers, but there's certain bars that take huge advantage of newcomers to town, and they're paying them maybe $50.
Yeah,
I mean, basically minimum wage to come play, and they're just raking in this money from all of the tourists that come in and spend all this money at the bar. And so that's why if you'll notice if you go to certain bars, they push tips really,
yeah,
really hard because
yeah.
that's the only way they can make a livable wage. Luckily, I work in a circuit where they really represent artists and they want artists on their stage. They don't want just a cover band. They
Hmm.
want they want people that like, really believe in what they're doing and they pay us better. And you don't really have to push that tip thing. I mean, obviously we still make at least half of our money through tips, but it's nice to be able to have that little bit of stability to where you're putting on a show instead of just trying to hustle tips. Because I don't think anybody in Nashville really, people love tipping. I mean, that's it's cool to go and request your song,
Yeah.
but I don't think anybody wants to be hounded. And there's certain bars and certain circuits where every 20, 30 minutes the singer's off the stage in your face.
Hmm.
Hey,
Yeah.
give me money, sort of thing. And fortunately, the bars that I play at, they really take care of us. And like Friends in Low Places, you're not even allowed to walk the tip bucket because they do take such good care of us, and they've done the right things, and they really look out for their bands, and so they don't want their customers being bombarded by
Yeah.
tips and stuff. And we still have they allow us to have our Venmo on stage and tip
Hmm.
buckets, and they allow us to accept tips, but I think that's a really I personally would do it that way. Pay your bands. You're going to make a lot of money off of them.
Yeah.
And if for some reason they aren't doing a good enough job to where they're not keeping people in the room. It's like, well, then you have a conversation with the band, like, hey guys, we love you, but you know, this is a business and either you get better or we're gonna have to replace you, and I get that too, but they really do take care of all the bands, and I'm fortunate enough to work in a circuit where they take care of us to where we can just play and not have the stress of, having to make every penny be, tip money. So
All right, so that leads me to the next question about Nashville, and you've been there for so long now. There has to be some ebbs and flows of number one, time of year, right? So seasons, is there seasonality? And then two, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week almost.
basically,
So is there a peak time of year? And then is there different slots get different performers and different money?
right.
I don't know.
Definitely. So the prime slot, so the way that it works on Broadway, which thank goodness all the bars pretty much follow the same exact schedule. There may be a couple here and there that do something a little different, but most bars open up at 10 a.m.
Yep.
So the first slot is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay.
And there's always a 30-minute changeover time. So
Yep.
10 a.m. to 2 p.m., 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. 7 days a week. Every bar down there has that same
That's the
exact
same
schedule.
time. Yep.
Because otherwise it wouldn't really work because a lot of my band, they play with other bands too. So they may be working a double or a triple, or if they're crazy enough, a quad, working
Yeah.
all day
Wow.
long, which I don't know how they do that. But that's sort of the way it works um, as far as the time
Hmm.
goes. Wait, where else? Where else
So
was
we
I
were saying
going?
that, so now that's the time Monday through Saturday
Yeah.
or Sunday.
So yeah,
Then what
every
day of the
day.
week is there a bigger crowd on Friday, Saturday,
Yeah. So
Sunday?
definitely
Or
you want weekend shifts are obviously going to be the best, depending on the time of the year, but weekend shifts are the best. That's when everyone's able to come to town and there's just more people there. So the chance of you making more money and, reaching
hmm
more people is just higher during the weekend. Um, Personally, I love, you know, the best shifts are typically the late afternoon, early evening. But it all depends on what you want out of it. Because I played closing shifts for years, and the money was decent, but I was in a phase of my life where I loved the party crowds.
Yeah.
So it was fun playing to a packed
Yeah.
house, but you may not make as much money because people are so drunk, they're just partying, they're not
Yeah.
really. But you could work a 2 o'clock shift where it's more of a listening crowd and they're not partying, but they're tipping you a lot better. So it just all depends what you're looking for and when it comes to Nashville and Broadway and that sort of thing. But definitely, I would say that's what I tell people all the time. Depending on what you want from Nashville, if you just want to come to Nashville, experience Nashville without the chaos between Thanksgiving and spring break, so like middle of March, that's a great time of year. It slows down.
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
busy. But from spring break to Thanksgiving, like the summertime, it's crazy. The
Yeah.
kids are out of school,
Yeah.
colleges are out,
Yeah.
people are on vacations. So it's definitely full blown wall to wall. You're gonna have to wait in line to get in bars.
Yeah.
But I personally love the other time of the year because from November to March, I mean, there's football season. The Titans are there. We have the Predators. So
hmm
the hockey
Hockey.
team,
Yeah.
you can catch either one of those games. So there's a lot of great stuff. And the weather's a lot cooler. It's really hot in Nashville, like it is here.
Yeah.
So I love that time of year. But it all depends what you want. If you want the party crowd, come during the summertime. You're going to have a good time. So
So let me ask you this about, I know we basically when we go, we pretty much have our own schedule and
yeah,
it's pretty much the same every time. Like we'll go to Mellow Mushroom, we'll have
pros.
some pizza, right? Yeah. And then depending on what time you're playing, we'll go to like on Saturday at 2, it's always Kid Rocks in Johnstone. And then we found this one guy I told you about yesterday, Michael Leatherman, he'll play at
Yeah, he's
Chiefs.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's amazing. He does a thing on like either Friday night or Saturday night with his band, but then he'll do an acoustic and then he'll do a piano
Yeah.
for like 4 hours.
That's
And you're
cool.
just there on the second floor there, and it's really, really cool. And then we'll come see you when you're there. And so I guess the question I have is one, when I went in 2016, I would say it wasn't they weren't like the super new bars yet,
Right.
but that's changed.
Yeah. There's
And
so many new
then
bars.
and then the other question is like what percent, and it's probably pretty high, but I'm guessing like are people that are from out of town and then local. Like not many local, I guess. That's what I'm assuming. Like they
No,
hate this, they just probably don't. They probably stay
well,
away or
you know, as a local, I do love Broadway, but also it's a tourist attraction and
hmm
it's very expensive. So if you want to go have some beers on a weekend, you probably don't want to go downtown and
Yeah,
spend
yeah,
$10 for a Bud Light, and
yeah.
so that's I think it's more of that than anything. I mean, some people are just like, I hate Broadway. It's like, well, this is what the city's
Yeah.
built on. I don't know why I get such a bad rep, but um,
So talk a little bit about the like the history of, like you go to Tootsie's and you're like, this is great. This is like
yeah,
not a dive bar, but it's old, it's a
right,
genuine place. And then like we went last time and we went, no offense to John Bon Jovi and his bar, but it's just like sterile. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
like all brand new, which is cool, but I,
It's
I, I
no,
feel like I don't know,
it's not
there's
broken in yet.
no, it's not. But
And
I think with Chiefs, sorry, but when we went to Chiefs,
he did it right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
he has
great.
that blend of it's like it looks worn, but it's
Right.
new, and he's got that church like the pews, and that's a pretty cool
He did it
place.
right. I mean, it just depends on, because I'm not sure what Bon Jovi's intentions were, but at the end of the day, he may just be in it just
Yeah,
for
he's
the
like a
money.
name or
Yeah.
yeah, right,
He's just like,
right,
hey, I want to build something that's going to
yeah.
attract people. Whereas with Eric Church's bar, I think he really wanted to invest and to make it personal.
Oh yeah, it
Wanted to
is.
make it a space, and that's where the church be thing. So he has, actually artist shows there, and he
Yeah.
pops up from time to time, and that's more of a place that represents Eric Church to a
hmm
T versus like a big building with his name on it. So it's different in every bar. You have the Tootsies and the Rippies and the Honky Tonks that have that old school
hmm
Nashville feel to it. But yeah, I mean, pretty
The
much
stage and
the
legends. I mean,
stage.
they're
Pretty much
so
since I moved to town, all that started changing with the popularity of country music growing. I mean, I think essentially it's whenever Taylor Swift went from country to pop world, it really started blending the two worlds because, the pop scene, they obviously embraced Taylor and she became
hmm
such a huge figure in that world, but she was still country. And then a lot of the Florida Georgia Lines and bands like
hmm
that who are really blending the two genres of pop and country music and where you have more of like a track in the background and 808s and it wasn't just this like George Strait type of country music, which
Yeah.
which I love, but so once country music really started gaining popularity and the masses started coming over to country music, that's when it all kind of exploded down there and every artist has a bar now it
Yeah.
seems.
Vans, Laney's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't mention it earlier, but we went to Vegas and we saw Lainey Wilson. She was already really getting to be really
Yeah.
popular, but it was before she just like blew up. And I made Tracy, we went to it used to be the Hard Rock, but now it's the Virgin
Okay.
Hotel, and they
Yeah.
got a theater there. And I made her go. We went 2.5 hours early
Wow.
to wait in line, but we got right up to the stage.
Well, that's
And
cool.
she was like singing right in
She's
as
a
far as a
Louisiana girl.
performer goes, an unbelievable performance. Like
Yeah.
great singing, amazing singing, but her performance, she was super high energy the whole entire time. And I was like, that was worth waiting 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
It was pretty
She did
awesome.
it the hard way too. I mean, she was in Nashville for
10 years, I
10
think.
plus.
Yeah.
And obviously her style of music is very country. And when she was coming through the ranks in Nashville, pop country was just very, very popular. It was kind of the dominant
Yeah.
thing. And so once that style of country music, people started wanting something a little different. You
hmm
had the Luke Combs come
Yeah.
along and like something just not so polished and, just real, like real country folks. And like she grew up, you know, 30 minutes from where I grew up and on a farm. Like she's a
Yeah.
country person.
Yeah.
And so I think people really craved that authenticity.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to see her kind of explode, on the scene. Because everyone in town knew how talented she was, but for whatever reason, it just didn't take off.
It seemed like what really launched her was Yellowstone, like getting that part. And I don't know how that all happened, but
Yeah.
then it became like, oh, she's on TV too. And
Yeah, that definitely launched her to the masses. I mean, I think at that point she had one number one song, which she was definitely on her way up.
yeah.
But then you get put on a show that popular, and the rest is history. The whole
Yeah.
world sees it at that point.
So I have more questions got people ask me last night, which is kind of one of the benefits. You turn in this negative into a positive of.
Right.
So I did ask this yesterday, and I'm always curious to know. Like I pay attention to everything that's kind of going on with the guitar player, and what they're doing and what you're doing when you're up there singing, and you got the pedals and you got all this stuff. So we talked about it yesterday, but I wanted to bring it up again. Is the like what's going on in the ear? Well, you see people on TV when they perform for the Grammys, whatever. They're
Right.
always wearing these ear things. Like what is going on with the inside those earpieces?
So essentially the speaker that's on the floor wedge, that's what's in your ear. So which I'm fortunate that it's all going to that technology. It's great downtown because we don't have to sing over the speakers like because it's an in-ear mix. So it's
Okay,
basically speakers in your ear and I can
okay.
control every little thing about that mix. So with my mix, I have primarily my voice and my acoustic guitar and electric guitar. I don't really have a whole lot of drums. I don't have a whole lot of bass. I have like kick and snare, but I basically just need it for the groove. I don't need a
So it's
bunch of
that detailed. You
it
can get
is.
in
And
your ear.
you can start fine tuning like cut some of the highs out, cut some I mean you can do whatever you want, but I don't need a bunch of cymbals in my ears or because then that just becomes noise and I'm trying to sing over cymbals. I can't hear my voice and each player has their own mix.
Hmm.
And so like I'm sure my guitar player his guitar is probably the loudest thing in his ears, whereas like bass player, the loudest thing in his ears is, bass and then drums because they work together. They have the
Hmm.
rhythm section. So it's really cool and it saves your ears because you don't have to scream. And that's why I'm fortunate enough. I don't lose my voice very often because you have such a good ear mix and it kind of plugs out the outside world. So you can just only hear what's in here. It's like you have headphones in,
Yeah,
so it's cool.
yeah.
And definitely when you're, a couple of stadium shows that I've played and all these big artists, they have to have that because if they don't, they're going to be hearing what's bouncing off front and it's going to be a half a second delay, so
Oh
it's
yeah,
almost necessary
yeah.
to have that. Even if you didn't want it, it's like, well, I have to have this because otherwise I'm going to be off what my band's doing, because they're playing at this certain tempo and I'm hearing. So it's cool. It's an interesting world.
That you mentioned a performer like that or a big stadium and everything, and you brought it up yesterday. I want you to bring it up again, but tell me about that time when I had asked you about have you're in Nashville, you're on Broadway, you're in these certain bars, but like now I feel like in the business we didn't talk a lot about the recording part of it, but it seems like the artists have to go do stadiums to make money, like make a lot of money. And so I
Yeah.
think yesterday it came up just during the normal conversation about how you got the chance to do like a festival or a show.
Yeah. So there's not a whole lot of money in record sales anymore. Very few artists sell records. I mean, you have the top dogs like the Morgans and the Lukes and that are going to sell tons of records. People actually buying them.
Yeah,
But most cars don't even come with CD players anymore.
right.
I mean, that's a thing in the past. Everything's digital.
Apple Music.
Apple Music, but all of these streaming platforms don't really pay you. I think we talked about it
Yeah.
yesterday, but for a million streams, I think you get maybe 3 to 4 grand. But that's before you split it with your co-writers, you
Yeah.
split it with your publishing, if you have a record deal, so essentially you're probably getting like 5 to 10% of that when it's all said and done, if
Yeah.
even that much. So it's very tough. So the way that you make money as an artist in this day is either you monetize your social media in
Hmm.
some sort of way or touring, where you're
Hmm.
getting ticket sales, you're getting merch sales,
Hmm.
all these things. But yeah, it's almost impossible to make a good living just simply off your music. It's just so much more that goes into it.
So what was that first big show or the one we talked about yesterday? Tell people the one we did. I can't remember where it was. Was it in Oklahoma? Oh, was it
Arizona,
Arizona? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we talked about it. I've gotten to do a lot of really cool stuff. My first big artist that I got to open for was Pat Green
Okay,
in my
yeah.
hometown. I used to play this local bar all the time, and he was coming through, and it was sort of the same thing I've done on Broadway. You play there enough, and then a big artist comes through. They're like, "Hey, man, like I got this open slot. You've played a lot here. Like we're glad you support this venue. Come open up." So I got to do that, which is great. And then I got to do some. This is a couple of years ago, but I got to play my first couple arenas
Yeah.
with Justin Moore. which was incredible. It was really validating for me because I played 150 plus shows every year. I've done it for the last decade. I mean,
Yeah.
I play a ton. Um, but especially the majority of my shows being downtown and cover music, you just never really know how people are going to truly react to your music and your show. And,
Hmm.
so when I got to put on my show and represent myself and sing my songs in front of this huge crowd, and then them really receive me, and then like getting that feedback, it was great. I'm like, yeah, this can work. Like
Yeah.
my songs maybe are pretty
Yeah.
good, like that
Right.
sort of thing. Because you just never know
Yeah.
until you get it out there. Because if you're not on radio or anything like that, you don't really know how people
Right.
are gonna react to your music. And so that was an incredible experience. So thankful to them and uh, for having me. And then I got to do a big festival in Minnesota. And I'm from Louisiana. Tim McGraw's from Louisiana.
Hmm.
He was my hero since I can remember. And I got booked on this festival, and I was the opener, and he was obviously the headliner.
Hmm.
And so I'm at noon, and he's probably not playing until 9 or 10 o'clock that night. And he's also we graduated from the same college. He and my dad were fraternity brothers in college, and so I just grew up listening to Tim. I've had every record he's had. We got signed posters. I was a
Yeah.
huge fan,
Yeah.
and he was always my inspiration. And so I was side stage watching Brothers Osborne. If you've never heard them,
Hmm.
I know you've heard them before, but if you're listening, you've never seen their show, go listen to them. They're incredible. Buy the tickets. But I'd never seen them live, so I wanted to watch them live. And I got a text from my dad. He's like, "Turn around," or something of that nature. And I turned around. He was back there backstage talking to Tim, and they were catching up. I guess they hadn't seen each other in a long time, and just catching up like old friends do. And of course, I'm like shaking in my boots.
Yeah.
I hadn't probably seen this guy since I was 7 years old. Um, and now I'm in the same line of work as he is. And so I go back there and we talk for a minute. And he asked me, he's like, "Hey, do you know the bridge to I Like It, I Love It?" I said, "Yes, sir." He's like, "You want to sing it?" And I said, "Are you serious?" I got a video out there somewhere. I'm like, "Are you serious?" I'm like a complete shock. Like, did you ask me that? And so I got to get up, and that was one of the coolest moments. All right, y'all welcome Stephen Paul to the stage. I think he said something like, "Hey, and my dad were fraternity brothers together," and I got to sing the bridge in front of, I don't know, 15 plus thousand
Wow.
people. And um, we shared we we shared the same outfit.
Yeah, I
I
remember
told
you
this
saying that.
story yesterday,
Yeah.
but um, I had been out in this middle of this cornfield or whatever it was, just a big field all day, and it's hot, middle of the summer. I'm sweating. I didn't bring maybe one other t-shirt,
Yeah.
because I was planning on performing and then just hanging out.
Right.
So I had one clean t-shirt, put it on, kind of got dressed, made myself look halfway decent. I don't even think I had another pair of pants. Like I was probably they were probably baggy from all the sweat or what. I don't know. And it's funny looking back when we get the pictures. He's got his arm around me on stage, and we're like got our hands in the air, and we are wearing identical
That's
outfits.
funny.
We both have gray shirts, pants, boots, a gold belt buckle, cowboy hats. I'm like, God, what an idiot, Steve. What are you doing? You can't get on stage with him and look just like him. But
Yeah.
it was kind of a funny moment for me, and it just all came full circle that I earned my way on that stage, and I got to sing with him. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday, and you skipped a little bit over, but you mentioned social media and how, the example I gave yesterday was like, a guy like Jelly Roll was making music, but he was like more, it was almost like rap, but it was like that kind of music. And then he made a video, and then that YouTube video basically got him that
Sure.
massive recognition. And then people were like, oh my God, this guy's insane. And you hear about it all the time, like somebody can sit in their basement and sing on, just into the microphone like
Right.
we're doing right now, and then have 2 million hits on YouTube and be like, oh my God. And they didn't put the 10 years of work in and all that.
Right.
When the way we were talking about it yesterday was that it's not going away. It's part of every business
Sure.
now. Businesses have social media departments,
Right.
and you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, you've got Facebook. And I think the thing I was saying yesterday was that I have a buddy that's a pretty good runner, and he's on Instagram, and he's got like 500,000 followers or
Right.
something like that.
Wow.
On YouTube, you need a thousand subscribers to monetize.
Right.
I don't have that. I got 40, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Let's
you
get
had,
it to 1,000.
yeah, let's get it to 1,000, right? But you had mentioned, you like, yes, the example you gave was perfect. You said, look, I don't want to be on a run with you and Kurt and thinking about I need to create content from this run.
Right.
That's just you. You're saying that. But I feel like it's in every business, it's in the world now. And so do you have any strategy about like your social media? And you mentioned yesterday, like, is there anyone out there that wants to be your social media
Yeah,
person?
I
But
know, right?
so, like, talk a little bit about what do you do today? If you're not using it, do you plan on doing it? We talked about AI a little bit, so just maybe talk
Sure.
about that.
Can we pause this for a second? Can I go use the
Yeah.
restroom?
Yep.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, folks. I'm back. Yeah, so social media, it's my arch nemesis.
Yeah.
It is a necessary evil, but I think the thing that I struggle with the most is I don't mind posting that sort of thing. I don't want to miss out on life because that's the only thing I'm thinking about. And I've struggled finding that balance, like you were talking about. Content is everything these days, and just post, 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 post,
hmm
post. And yeah, I could have made a video of us running and whatever, and some people do enjoy that, but I just wanted to go out and run with y'all
Yeah.
and talk and just be
hmm
completely present.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for me to do that when I'm thinking about social media. Like I just want, because we're on our phones all the time anyways, and I just feel like sometimes you get robbed of you know the world because you're so disassociated because you're thinking about what I got to post, what I got to do.
hmm
That's things like man, just look around and breathe and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So that's definitely been a struggle of mine. Definitely something I need to be better at. But yeah, content is king, and essentially the way the music business works now is it is strictly a business. There's not very
hmm
many labels that are signing artists for talent, pure talent. You have to have talent,
Yeah.
but you also have to have numbers.
Yeah. That's
You
that's
have to have the
crazy.
streams. You basically
Yeah.
have to have a finished product
Yeah.
and bring it to
Proven.
them. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is my business, which
Yeah.
I can't blame them for that. I mean, they want to invest in something that they think's going to work. Um, it does rob a lot of people of the chance to really get their music out there that I think are great, but their socials aren't great or their streaming numbers aren't great. But then you listen to music, and you're like, man, this is better than anything on the radio right now. But ultimately, Nashville still controls radio, and that's just the way it works now. And so you have to adapt and overcome that side of things. And that's something I definitely need to get better at.
hmm
And I will get better at it.
I think you do a pretty good job now. I see it, on Instagram. And you have like the little clips of you singing and stuff
Sure.
like that. I think that's,
It's not
do you
bad.
do that with someone?
Yes. My buddy Randy shoots all my content.
Okay.
He's amazing. It's just posting. But some people are posting three, four, five times a day.
Yeah.
And I just I need to probably get there. It's just hard for me to do. And it's really not an excuse. I don't have an excuse not to do it. It's just I don't know. I don't really love that world. I don't want I don't want to be so consumed with the thought of social media that I just forget to live.
Yeah.
So it's finding that balance. So there's balance with everything.
Yeah. I think it's probably, I was reading about how, the average person that has TikTok will look for like 3 to 5 seconds.
Hmm.
That's it. Three to five
If you don't
seconds.
catch them,
Yeah. That's it. You get that time, which is just nuts.
and that's another thing I struggle with. I want to just share my music and be able to like grab listeners because they like the song, but it's almost like you have to find some sort of like clickbait to get
Yeah.
them to engage before you even
It's marketing, right? It's
it
all about
is it
marketing,
is
and yeah, I
and
mean,
some people are really good at it.
yeah,
I'm not the best when it
yeah.
comes to marketing my
And what
music.
what I think that it's unfortunate it's turned into. Now, marketing for a business is money, okay?
Hmm.
And it just basically boils
Yeah,
down to money. You can do search engine optimization. When someone puts in something in Google and they want to find Stephen Paul, you can be first on list if you pay,
right.
right? And it's expensive. now you can do like for this YouTube and for the RSS, sound of it, you can pay to get more followers or more people to like. But my buddy that guy Ken was saying, he's like, if you look at like a David Goggins and he has like 1.2 million followers or what, some of them they're not even real.
Right.
They paid
You
to
got a lot of them.
have
Yeah.
that number, you
Yeah.
know.
And
So
that's
I get it. I totally respect that you want to stay true to the business and be passionate and get your music out there, but it's like a necessary evil, it
yeah,
feels like, in order to be consistent and
true.
to make money and all that. So that's my next question before we talk about running is, so you're a paid professional musician with a steady job right now, but do you have in your band and you have any kind of long-term like goal? Like, like when you're little, you say, "Oh, I want to be a professional baseball player,"
Sure.
right? Or, that changes every year when you're little. You went through that. I want to be a doctor, or maybe it was going to be an engineer and then electrician, and now it's like I'm a musician.
Right.
What kind of goals do you guys have, or do you have any goals set for your career there?
The ultimate goal is to tour and play my own music.
Okay.
Obviously, I would love to play out stadiums like, Ken
Yeah.
Chesney, but there's also a smaller path. If I sold 5,000 tickets everywhere I went, that's a great
Oh, heck
living.
yeah.
That's a very great living. And you can fly under the radar and you not have to get caught up in all that stuff. And that would be totally fine too. My ultimate goal has always been to just make a living playing my own music. And it hadn't got there yet. And that's okay. Everything in my life has taken a lot of hard work and time.
Hmm.
I've never gotten anything easy. Whether it was, graduating valedictorian, yeah, that's awesome. But it's like I
You
spent my
did the
entire
work.
life. Yeah, I did.
Hmm.
I spent hours and hours and hours studying every day.
Yeah.
So that's just sort of how I look at my music too. Is I just keep putting in the work, and I'm a faithful person, so I
Hmm.
believe that if it's in God's plan, it'll
Yeah.
happen, and if
Yeah.
it's not, that's okay too. Like, if I don't want the joy of music to be robbed of me because I get so caught up in the end result and miss the beauty of the journey, So ultimately that is my goal. I want to I'm not sure if like record deals and all that stuff is
Yeah.
a goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be great if
Yeah.
I had that exposure, but in today's world, I don't even know if that's something you really want unless it's the right fit for you. But it's yeah, that's the
So
goal.
then, I mean, I think you could look at a business, any business, whether you're making iPhones or whatever, but there's a model, right? And there's a process and there's a way to be number one in that industry, let's call it. Is there a roadmap or has there been a roadmap for that to happen for someone? I don't know. I'm asking. I don't have any
I
idea.
don't know if there is. That's
Yeah.
the challenging part of what I'm doing is, and I know we talked about how it's different from running, but sort of the same. It's, you know, now that I'm going to attempt my first marathon, that I have that
Hmm.
light at the end of the tunnel. It's like I know the date, I
Yep.
know exactly what I need to do every single day. And with music, you can do the same things, but there's never a finish line. There's never, if people don't listen to my music or that doesn't resonate with them or build enough big enough audience or my socials don't do it well enough, then it just won't work.
Mm.
So that's the thing that I struggle with is it's hard to sometimes keep yourself super motivated when you don't have that like tangible thing you can get to. But that's why you must love music to do it.
Oh yeah.
You can't just do this as a hobby
Yeah.
because you'll quit
Yeah.
instantly because there is no light at the end of the tunnel. There's not nothing you can grab. So um but I love music, so I just keep doing it.
So, do you guys as a band manage your own stuff, or do you have a manager? Is there a promoter? Like, like
Yeah.
if you want to go play 5,000 seat theaters, let's say, is there somebody that does that or can help you do that?
Yeah, I had a manager for years and years, and she was great. We've recently gone our separate ways just because where I'm at in my career and where she's at with her entertainment business just didn't really mesh at the time. So we've decided to go our separate ways, but I wish her nothing but the best. But Yeah, you definitely can have, and that's what it also takes in Nashville to make it is having a team around you that complements what
Hmm.
you're doing very well. And, everyone has a certain skill set. And, one person's skill set may be the marketing, or one person's skill set may be just just having good people skills where they can
Hmm.
get you in certain doors because they have the ability to talk to people
Yeah.
and not feel like they're, wanting something from, some people have those skills. And it's definitely about building the right team around you, because if you don't have the right team around you, good luck.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that too.
All right, we'll get one last thing on music, and then we'll talk about running. Um, so there was a, I wouldn't call, I don't know, maybe it was viral. It might have been viral, a video of when Garth Brooks was downtown. He was at his bar and he did like a guest bartending
Yep,
thing, and he was singing.
I was. That
And
was
so
me.
just tell me that story quick.
That was awesome. So a day or two, we play currently we play every Thursday 2 to 6 at Garth's Bar. We've done that
Okay.
shift pretty much every week since they
Oh,
opened a
wow.
couple of years ago. I think
At least 2 years.
yeah, yeah, maybe at the end of this year it'll be,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's been a little bit, and I think we do a great job. And the manager texted me. He's like, "Hey, can y'all start your shift a little bit early Thursday?" I was like, "Well, I'll have to talk to my band
Yeah.
because, like I said earlier, you know how the
They could be
shifts
doing,
work."
yeah.
So my drummer plays a morning shift every Thursday, and luckily they don't cross over. But I had to make sure that he could get over a little early, and fortunately we were able to do it. I said, "Yeah, I think we can." He said, "All right, cool," because the boss man's coming in. And of course, I knew what that meant. And I'm not the person to really ask a ton of questions. I just, okay, we'll
Yeah,
get up and
right.
show her, we'll do our job. And um, I was actually a little nervous that he was going to get on stage because we know a lot of Garth songs, but he knows all Garth
Yeah,
songs.
right,
And
right.
so, like, I don't know if like he's going to ask us to play a song that we've never played before. So
Right.
fortunately, but unfortunately, he didn't get on stage. But him and Trisha, or he and Trisha, I guess is probably the
Don't ask me.
correct.
I still have English in high school. I swear to
I
God,
was
I
a
did.
math guy, so
Sid,
yeah.
I've got the transcript to show you. F, English.
So for about a half hour, they came and guest bartended, and that place was slammed. Because typically the 2 to 6 shift on a Thursday is pretty chill shift. People are hanging out, eating lunch, just getting to town. It's not a party shift by
Yeah.
any means. But it was slammed wall to wall, and there was even a lady that tipped us. I think she may have gave us like $50. She's like, "Can you tell me what's going on?" And I was like, and I was playing dumb. I was like, I have no idea. I just sing. Like, I don't. She's like, and she dropped 50 in the tip bucket. And I was like, what are you doing? Which I was like, okay, we'll take your
Yeah, right.
money. Are you sure you can't tell me? And then, of course, I was like, well, let me sing you a couple of songs if you're going to tip us. So I ended up singing her a couple of songs. But yeah, they showed up and they guest bartended, and I got to sing. We sang probably 2.5 hours of music nonstop. That was the most exhausting gig I've ever played because
Stress, maybe a little bit.
it's a little bit of stress, but typically we have the layout of our show of
Oh,
how
yeah,
it sort of
yeah,
goes, and there's ebbs and flows where we're not just doing party music 24/7. You'll do the Tennessee whiskey, let the people take a break, and 4 hour show's long, so you have to kind of.
oh
But
yeah.
we played 2.5 hours of every hit song, party song you can think of, and it was and we got to obviously sing "Friends in Low Places" and "Call of Baton Rouge," and so I'm in all the videos that are online. And rumor has it Garth said that it was the best version of "Friends in Low Places" he's ever had covered. So I'm gonna take that to the
Yeah.
grave. But it was really cool. I didn't. I got to meeting. We got to play his friends and family day when they opened their bar
Oh, wow.
during like the dinner
Yeah.
part. So I got to say hey to him for a second. I mean, there were so many people around him, but I got to shake his hand, which was really cool. But I'm thankful. I mean, they take care of artists. I mean, I think he truly appreciates what we do, and I'm sure he's been there. And they really take care of us, and they built a great venue. And
Yeah, they did. That's a nice place.
yeah, it's one of the nicest, bars. Well, because most bars on Broadway, they were bars, and then they put a stage
Right.
there.
Yeah, you said that
Whereas
yesterday.
Friends in Low Places and some of these other venues, maybe like Wild Horse, or now it's Luke Holmes's bar, but they have a huge stage, and then Old Red's sort of the thing. But a lot of these are bars that have stages, but they really built what I would call a venue.
Yeah.
My theory is that Nashville will eventually become like a Vegas as far as big artists are going to have residencies or something to that nature because there's a lot of really
There's
nice
a nice
venues now.
venues. You're
So,
right. Yeah. That Luke
someone
Combs venue is
it's
amazing.
amazing. So imagine, someone that was huge in the 80s and 90s are sort of on their way to
Yeah.
retirement now and maybe a month out of the year they have a
Right
residency
there.
at Luke's
Yeah.
bar, which would be awesome. I
Oh
mean, it'd
yeah.
be like a Vegas thing.
Yeah.
So, if you heard it here first, I won't in on the
Yeah.
enterprise, but building those sort of venues downtown with excellent sound and engineers and staff, makes it fun to play at.
Yeah. But it's again the some of them. Have you been to Jelly Rolls?
I have not been in there. I typically don't hang around
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
downtown,
get it.
but
It was.
I've seen pictures and
Yeah.
it looks nice.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like you've mentioned it's like Vegas though. That's what it's
Right.
becoming. It's like this, not Nashville to the core. It's
Oh,
Vegas
it's a tourist
entertainment
attraction.
tourist
Yeah,
attraction.
which I get. There's money. There's
Yeah.
money to be made. But yeah, you don't get a whole lot of that. Like, if you ever visit Nashville, go to Roberts. Have you?
Somewhere Olivia.
Yeah, get you they call it the
Olivia.
recession special.
Yeah.
I believe you can get a bologna sandwich and a beer for like under
Wait,
$10.
and the moon pie.
And the moon pie. Yep. Yep.
That's stale. It's probably 25 years old.
Right.
I had one.
It's probably like $10 or less.
I
I could
did
be
a
wrong on that,
I
but
did a pretty funny video with Tracy. I had the beer. It's a Pabst Blue Ribbon.
hmm
And we did a little video like promoting Pabst Blue Ribbon. It was funny. Or like the other cool thing that we do, and this is Steph, Kurt's wife. She'll bring a magic marker, and we'll
Yeah.
go to Tootsie's every time and write on the wall.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Like those things
Yeah,
are cool. Like
those
you're not gonna go right on the wall at Morgan Wallen's or
no.
at Luke Combs' new place, or you get arrested.
Right. Maybe in 30 years,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's all changing. I mean, at the end of the day, money talks. So if someone walks in with enough money, I mean, who's going to turn down
yeah,
$30 million for a building just to,
yeah.
whatever it is. But
All right, one more. I forgot this question. I wrote it down. I had it because I was interested in it, and I see it a lot when we'll go to your if you're at Valentine's or wherever. The drummer at all these places is behind plexiglass.
yeah,
Most of the like
yeah,
95% of the time they're behind this plexiglass, and I was like, why are they behind there?
it's to control the sound.
Yeah,
So obviously cymbals and drums make a lot of noise. And so they put up these it's just plastic or
yeah,
plexiglass um, to mitigate the sound from bleeding out front because they want a clear sound out front. So if there's obviously you have your main speakers and the engineers dial in the sounds and you can only get it so clear. But if you also have stage volume
yeah.
bleeding out into that, it really just kind of creates a nightmare situation where you're essentially just hearing drums like
Mm,
or
yeah.
like if the guitar player has his amp too loud, all you hear is that, you can't hear anything else. So you know, they try to mix the drums to where it's coming through the front, and obviously you can hear it on stage, but they just don't want it to be overbearing. Because a lot
Oh
of these
yeah.
buildings are not built as venues, so may have like brick walls or
Hmm.
just metal, or where
Yeah.
the sound is just bouncing off everything, and you're like in a wind tunnel. It seems like, but yeah, essentially that's what it's for, just to kill the sound a little bit,
All right.
noise.
So now switching gears, because two things. One, how did you end up coming to the Quad Cities? And then two, you've been on kind of I'll call it a running journey
Yeah,
in the last 2 years. Probably three, but serious
yeah,
last two,
1.5 to
one
two
and a half, 2
years.
years.
Yep, for sure.
So how did you end up here in the Quad Cities coming up? And then that running question.
So Broadway was how I ended up here. I used to play, I believe I was at the time playing at the stage, which is the stage is a great
Yep.
venue, but on like one of their half floors, I call it like the third and a half floor. There's a small room on the back side of the building. Maybe 75 people can fit in there, but they always did acoustic shows on the weekend. So me and whoever they set me up with would play acoustic Broadway shows on the weekend, which was really cool because everything on a weekend is full band. So people that wanted a little break and they stumble in the room, like, and this is awesome because we have two acoustic guitars and it's not crazy
Yeah.
loud. You can get a little breather from the full bands or the DJs or whatever. But I met a group of girls, I believe it was there from the Quad Cities, and they came to a couple of our shows and they're like, "You should come to the Quad Cities and play." And I was like, "Well, never been there. I don't know anybody there
Yeah.
besides y'all, and I don't have any connection with venues. Do you know anybody that owns a bar or a venue?" And they're like, "Yeah, we have the perfect people for you." So they introduced me to Austin and Jonna,
Yeah.
and I believe it was right around the time that their first bar had opened, the
Public
Public
house.
House. So this was 2016, 17-ish. I need to go back and find the actual date from the first time. But they were nice enough to trust me to come up and play, and I want to say, they even put me up at their house the very
Yeah.
first time. Like, I mean, they welcomed me with open arms, and obviously they are some of my best friends now. And y'all, like, we've all become, or I've become really good friends with all of y'all, and it's cool to see y'all every year. And so yeah, that's essentially how it happened. They just a random group of girls that was down there on I don't know if it was a bachelorette party or
Yeah.
just they were just down there hanging out, whatever. And they made the connection for us, and I've been coming up here for close to a decade
Yeah.
now. Crazy to think about.
I remember another funny story I thought of after yesterday. I remember you came up for an Iowa game.
Yep,
So I think maybe you played Public House Friday night or
try
something
to
like
do that
that.
once a year.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then we go to the game. So we're at tailgate. And this was, oh man, I don't even know how many years ago, probably 5, 6 years
yeah,
ago. And I remember you brought, was it the koozies?
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you brought like 2 bags of koozies, and me, you, and Gary,
yeah.
we were like, "Let's
Pass them
go!"
out.
And we started walking around all the parking lots, handing them out to the
Yeah,
people with your name on there and stuff.
I'm
I was
just
like, "Hey,
I just always feel so awkward. I don't know. I'm a terrible promoter of myself. So it's nice to have y'all there.
yeah,
Like, you should listen to his
yeah,
music. I'm like, yeah, listen to these guys.
right,
Because I don't like when I'm walking up, want to give somebody something a koozie. And they're like, no. I'm like, what do you mean, no? It's a koozie too,
yeah,
So, but yeah, it's been great. I love everyone that I've become friends with. It's you know, the Quad Cities have become family to me. It's a trip I look forward to every year, and you know, it was a little different this year because I come during the middle of the summer, but typically I come up here, play a couple days, and then we'll all go to a Iowa game
yeah,
on Saturday. And Austin's taken me to a handful of them, and it's been awesome. So I've got to
yeah,
see some really good games.
yeah. It was awesome last night. You played at the Ridge. So for people listening, Jonna and Austin Chesney, they own 4 establishments here, and I'm going to go with kind of that what we talked about earlier, performers versus like the industry, right? Like a great performance. These people are the performers of the entertainment bar drinkery industry.
Right.
So service is like top of mind for them, and they're the amazing people. 4 bars. The Public House was first, then there was the Ridge, and then there was OG, Oak Grove, and now there's Candies.
Yeah.
And
Candies is awesome.
yeah, and I am so psyched that they help support this. And you played last night at the Ridge, and tonight you're at OG,
Yep.
which is cool. We'll be by there later. All right, now running, because
Yeah.
I know you probably got to get going.
Yeah. So essentially, it started after I met Austin because what year did he run Leadville?
It was like 2021 or two. It was
Okay.
2021.
Okay, because I know, yeah, obviously y'all had been training for that race, but he really inspired me after he ran. He ran the 100 mile, and I was like, man, if you can do that, maybe I should just get off my butt and do something,
Yeah.
And so I started training for my first half marathon, and Austin came down and ran my first half marathon with me in Nashville in 2023, and this just explains how awesome a person he is. He drove down uh, the day before the race, woke up, ran the race with me, and then drove back up here and then took all of his employees, I think, to a Justin Bieber
Yeah.
concert, maybe in Des Moines. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't in the Quad Cities. It was
Yeah. He
like
likes to drive.
a couple of hours away, and
Yeah.
I was like, how did you even?
Yeah.
But that's just the kind of person he is. He
Yeah.
just, I don't know. I wish we all had the energy that he had, but he's an awesome person. But so he really inspired me, and then obviously I became really good friends with all y'all, and y'all have all done it too, and so it's very inspiring. And I've run 3 half marathons total. With my last one being last year, I ran the Memphis Half Marathon with a buddy of mine for charity, and currently, I guess I don't know when this comes out, but Monday will be my first official day training for the marathon in Des Moines. So if you hear this and want to
Yep.
come run Des Moines, and I believe it's October 19th,
Yep. A Sunday.
a Sunday. Yeah,
Yep.
if you're up there and want to run, I'll be there. If these guys aren't too busy, I'll try to
Yeah.
convince them. But
Oh,
it's
I'm
during
gonna.
the middle of
Football
football
season.
season, so I can't listen. I love football, so I
Yeah.
would never guilt somebody to skip a football game to come
Yeah, but
run.
they're
So,
just so they're nuts enough that they could possibly go to the game on Saturday and then run the marathon the next
right,
day.
they probably will.
Yeah.
They probably will. So, yeah, that's my current goal right now, and officially Monday I'll start my training. I'm excited for that challenge because, like we were talking about earlier, it's just having that goal,
Yeah.
and I think
Right
it's
to the
really going to
finish line.
bleed a lot into my music and to really reset my mind and focus on, setting that goal and making sure you have a plan every day, which I've definitely fallen a little short of. But I think it's all going to blend together.
So Tracy had asked me today, she's like, when you talk to Kurt, when you did your podcast with Kurt and John Byrne and John DeDonker and now Evan Kihlstrom, and you talk about running in Leadville, you don't go into any of the details about like the running gear, let's say. So for you, I mean, you got your Garmin, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I know Evan said when he
Thank you,
started
Eddie.
running, it was like an Apple Watch, and he's like, I quickly learned that I needed something better.
Yep.
When you got into it, I know Austin, maybe gave you some advice about what wheelie mileage or that kind of stuff, but how did you learn about like the technical stuff, like shoes? Because like if you get in the wrong shoe, you could end up with problems, right?
Right.
Then even with the clothing is technical now, right? Like shirts and
Sure.
shorts and that
Well,
kind of thing. I was just gonna say, like,
I
how did,
learned the hard
yeah.
way on the shirt thing
Oh
because I
yeah.
ran the first half marathon in a cotton t-shirt
Yeah. That's
and my
painful.
nipples were
Oh yeah.
raw
Yeah.
and they were bleeding. And
Yeah, yeah.
that was one thing, sorry, TMI, but
Yeah.
I had no idea that sort of thing would, I mean, I knew like chafing,
Yeah.
like I knew I was smart just playing sports. Like I knew like to wear something that wouldn't chafe me
Yeah.
on the lower half, but I didn't know about t-shirts. Like I was like, I'll just run in a t-shirt. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. But obviously
Yeah.
you sweat for 2.5 straight hours
Yeah.
and a cotton t-shirt does not
Yeah. It's
wick sweat.
abrasive.
Yeah. So,
I think everybody's learned that lesson
yes, oh my
when they first
goodness.
start.
But I've just kind of learned along. Obviously, I ask y'all a million questions all the time, but Austin definitely helped me with nutrition. He actually provided all the nutrition on my first half. Like he brought the salt tabs and
With
some of the
them. Yeah.
goos.
Yeah.
And up until my very first half marathon, I'd never run longer than 8 miles. And the I had a 1 mile planned loop at my house in East Nashville. So I never had to take food with me. I just had
Oh
it at
yeah.
my front door or on my patio. So if I made a loop, I would drink some water.
Yeah.
So I was definitely ill prepared for the first one, but luckily Austin was. But I've just kind of learned along the way. I mean, my TikTok now is lawn care and running. I mean,
Yeah.
that just explains where I'm at in life right now. But I really do love running. It's a passion of mine, and I'm always absorbing new things. And yeah, one of y'all, you could have told me this also. Somebody else group was like, you need to go, a store like Fleet Feet or
Get
something and
fitted.
get fitted, see
Yeah.
where your foot, your gait, and
Hmm.
like even little things like I wear a size 12 shoe, but they recommended I go a
12 and a
half
half.
size up, which helped me so much with just blisters. I didn't
Yeah.
know, like my feet were up. I'm like, I almost, that sort of thing. And the second half marathon, I'm nuts, but the second half marathon I ran, which was my first time to break the sub two, I ran it in on clouds that didn't even tie. They were the ones you
Oh,
just step
slide on.
into. And looking back, I'm like, what are you thinking? Like that is a terrible. But I trained in those, and
Right.
and ultimately that's what I've learned too was that if it feels good, that's kind of what matters. I mean,
Yeah.
like even though
Yeah.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
technically
Without a
wasn't
doubt.
the best shoe for me, like it for whatever reason
It just felt right.
it felt right,
Yeah.
and I trained in it, and uh, you know, I didn't at the time I didn't have a bunch of extra money to spend on shoes, and they can be expensive,
Oh, heck
worth
yeah.
the investment, but I didn't have an extra $150 to drop on shoes. I was like, well, I've trained in these, like I don't want to buy a new pair of shoes and then like they not work
Yeah.
and like hurt myself on race. So that was crazy. But then by the third half marathon, I kind of knew what to do, what to expect, how to, eat before, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm still
So what
kind
are
of.
you running in now? Your shoes. What is your like weekly trainer versus your race shoe?
So right now, I was training in these Clifton
Yep.
nines, but I just got the Clifton tens, which I really really love. They seem to fit my shoe or my feet really well. I do most of my work in that. I have some older Mach sixes
Oh
from
yeah.
Hoka's that I do more speed work. I'm not crazy about. I guess I've just gotten used to the more cushiony shoe.
Uh-huh.
So those are just like,
Yeah.
they're just more for like speed. So I'm not necessarily crazy about, I don't know if I'd want to run in those, but I love doing speed work in them. But I'm still figuring out.
Yeah.
I think I'm still at the point in my running career where I'm still working on technical things like my stride and like, just things that until I really get comfortable in that world, it's hard to really nail in, you know,
Yeah.
because I'm still learning every day about how I run. So it's hard. But yeah, I just kind of try things as I go, but I know fueling is important. Drink plenty of water and making sure that for my long runs that, I have the fuel in my body. Because even if, I think I can do it, it's like, if you don't fuel
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, I think maybe a lot of the mistakes some new people to running make, especially in the summertime, is that hydration is constant. It's not like I'll just have a water before I run.
Right.
It's an
Yeah.
all week
Yeah,
thing.
it
You got
is.
to stay hydrated all the time, um, because you definitely don't want to get dehydrated. That's a
Right.
bad deal. It's funny. We were up at the ridge, and Jonna started doing a lot of walking, and she said Austin borrowed a pair of shoes and. She said, "Oh, I'm getting these blisters on the outside of my foot." And so I got a half size up, and I was like, "Well, what kind of socks are you wearing?" "Oh, just
Yep.
like regular cotton socks." And I'm like, "Okay, maybe it wasn't the shoes. It definitely need to go half up." But I said, "Why don't you try a different pair of socks, maybe?" Right?
It's
Because they
just
make the cool thing about running now is back in like the let's say call it the 70s where it kind of really
you
took off in the
you just went
US.
and ran,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and like the Nike original like waffle,
Hmm.
the soles. But cotton shirts, like you mentioned, cotton shorts,
Yeah,
cotton
that was
socks, you're like,
horrible.
man,
Terrible idea.
the technical stuff is really cool. And I've seen so many videos lately, like I get inundated with these shorts, like buy these shorts, right? And you're like $80 shorts. And I'm like, man, I don't want to spend $80,
Right.
like, come on, you can go to Target and get champion shorts for like
Right.
25 bucks.
It all just depends what your
Yeah.
body's. I mean, literally everyone's different, so it just depends on what you're looking for out of it. And for me, I want to train right and I want to do everything I can to prevent injury because
Yeah.
I don't want to buy a shoe that may be faster, but it ends up
Hurting
hurting
you.
me.
Yeah.
Because I'm in my mid 30s now, so I really want to do some cool things, but I don't want to set myself back, and so I'm just trying to do it the right way and learning everything I can along the way. Like I said, my whole TikTok is it's running propaganda
Yeah.
basically, but yeah, I learn something every day, and I'm excited to see all the things I'm going to learn during this next training block because I know obviously I'll get up to some 20-mile runs
Yeah.
and really get into the nitty-gritty of having to do all these things properly, like fuel and hydrate. Because if I don't, I mean, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. So,
Yeah. Well, you know who you can call. You got a couple of great resources
yep,
out there. And yesterday, I think you had mentioned, you got the Des Moines Marathon October 19th, and then you kind of went on a limb and mentioned something even crazier.
yeah. I think I want to do a 100 miler. I think I want to do. I may just be in bold right now.
Yeah.
But I think you even said, or someone had mentioned on one of your previous podcasts, is just like set lofty goals, even if
Yeah.
you never get to them. Like
Yeah.
you have to. And I think they said that I can't remember which guest it was, but and I've heard this before, but like shoot for the stars, you may land on the moon,
Yeah.
which is still a great achievement. So
Is.
I think for me, I can't let a marathon only be my biggest goal. Like even if I never run the 100, I want that to be my goal. And if my body and everything holds up, like I hope it will, I think it would be an amazing accomplishment. Because I know you said it, and everyone that's run these crazy races is like, if you can do something that hard, everything else seems
Easy.
pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal for a lot of things. So um, that's definitely a goal. I know it's going to take some years of hard work to get to it, but um, I don't know. Y'all have all really inspired me in that world.
That's
So
cool. Yeah, no, it is, it's like everything. You get out of it what you put into it,
hmm
like the schoolwork, the music now, because it's probably not just, it's not easy writing songs,
no.
you know. Oh yeah, last thing about that. So you have one song or two, or one that's been a million
Yeah, so
streams.
leaving Louisiana this year, which is a song I put out in 2018, was really the first song that I had put out that really gained me a little recognition inside the music industry. Where it was like, oh, I like this guy.
Yeah,
What's I put out some good songs before that I still love, but that was the one I was like, okay,
yeah,
what else has he got? And that's been my steady Eddie. That's the one that's just every day it'll get the roughly the same amount of streams and just it's like a steady climb up. And it hit 1 million streams this year, which I'm very dang proud of. That song was never on big playlists or really never been on radio and that sort of thing. And it just is all organic. People just like it and
yeah.
want to listen to it. So.
And what's the new one I just said yesterday that I listened to? It's
Mine Leaving Me.
Yep.
Yeah, I
I
just
like
put
that
that
one a
out.
lot.
I think it's been about a month now. And that was one of those songs that I've always loved. I love the story of it. I wasn't putting it out for any other reason than I liked it.
Yeah,
I didn't think it had some sort of like, oh, this is gonna be catchy and viral lyric or
I think it
like,
is though.
I think it's great.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of music being put out there now that it's being written for that one little catchy moment or
yeah.
viral success, just because that's the world we live in. And I've really tried to steer away from that aspect because I feel like just me personally, I feel like it robs me of doing the song justice. If that's what my main focus is, it's like, let's just write a really good song and then hopefully people like it. But if they don't, then
I
whatever.
think
I
it's a
still
good
like
one.
it.
I like
So
it. I think it's a good one. I don't know how many streams it has,
I think
but
it's got like 30 or 40,000 at this point, which is
wow.
great. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, in a month.
in a
So,
month. It's pretty good.
yep.
And then you mentioned you have one in the can.
I do, yeah. I haven't announced this on my social medias yet, but we have a new song coming out in August. I won't say the date yet. I'll save that for social media. But in August, it's going to be my first drinking song ever.
Uh-oh.
I've put out songs that have referenced drinking,
Yeah.
but I've never put out a drinking song in
Okay.
decades. So this is a song that I wrote with two good friends of mine back in 2000 and this kind of brings it back full circle. I think I wrote this song in 2016
Wow. So 9 years
and
later.
9 years later, it's a
Huh.
song that I've loved for a long time and we just really couldn't find the right production for it. I've got a couple of demos of it that sounded fine, but it just doesn't work. And so my guitar player, Tim, I volunteered him. I was like, hey man, produce this song for me. And he took the challenge and ran with it and he knocked it out of the park. And so um, a new song called Drink Themselves is coming out
Nice.
in August. So be on the lookout for it. Summer Jam.
That's awesome. Um, I think I left at the end yesterday with, do you have any advice for someone that wants to do what you're doing?
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's getting any easier.
It's not. It's first and foremost, you've got to love music. It's like anything. It's like running. I mean, if you don't love running,
Yeah.
good luck
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're not going to put yourself through that torture just to have a six pack
Right.
or something.
Right.
Like, it's not attainable. You have to love it because there's going to be ups and downs. But if you do love it, just go for it. You never know what can happen. Your life could change overnight, or you may do it for 10 years and not see the results that you want. But I think if you still have that joy for it and you work at it and you want to do it, then that's all that really matters. You can't, with anything in life, you can't control the outcome of it. I mean, it's just what's going to happen is going to happen. All you can do is work hard and for music, it's you just got to love it. You really do. If you do, the rest will just work out like it's supposed to.
Yeah. I know you probably got to get going. I really appreciate you doing this twice.
Yes, of course.
So stupid, but
We'll do
thank
it
you
a
so
third
much.
time if y'all want
We
to.
will. I'll make sure I delete this one
Maybe we
too.
do a
Yes.
post
Post marathon
marathon,
one.
just a little
Yeah.
recap. So maybe that can be our next one
October
here.
20th.
Yeah, we'll do if I can. We'll see if I can talk that day.
Yeah.
Now I'll be fine. My legs might be sore, but or they definitely will be sore. But
No, you put in the training and I think you'll be fine. I
Yep.
think, a lot of people like if you see these videos of these people like dying at the finish line, it's probably because they didn't train right enough
Right.
or they did push themselves beyond the max, right? But if you do the work, you should be fine. And if you set that time goal, everything you do from now until then, it will get you ready. It will just increase your odds of success.
Yeah. Well, look forward
No
to
shortcuts.
talking to you in October then.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.